Yeah, well, we'll confirm that. We'll go into selection next hour or so, but you would think that both those guys train well. They're integral parts of our team, so yeah, I would surmise that they would take their place in the side.
If last week had been a little bit more riding on the game, they would have been all right to play.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one. I guess we had that luxury, I guess, that we just felt that we were really capable of winning that game without those guys, and there was some doubt over them, and there was some chance that if they did play, they could have aggravated those injuries more. So we just erred on the side of caution, and hopefully those guys will come back fresh and play really well this weekend.
Just with the injuries you've got and the winning form you've taken, how well prepared do you feel for the final series?
Yeah, look, excuse me. We feel really well prepared. I guess there's two schools of thought. You know, if you look at Sydney's preparation, they've come in with probably 3 out of their last 4 games have been against sides, you know, high up in the top 8. Whereas we've taken a different route. I guess we've played some of the more lowly teams. So, you know, we feel we're in good touch and we've got winning form. They probably feel as if they've played, you know, some finals like intensity games, but haven't got the win. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and we probably won't find out until Saturday night.
Obviously, you've worked hard to get the home ground advantage. It's a good thing to have. Does it kind of bring pressure with it as well that maybe Sydney don't have?
Look, I think when you play finals, there's pressure no matter what. I guess we've worked all year, played 23 rounds, we've had 17 wins, so we've earned that the right to play at home. So I guess that if you look at the odds, we start as favourites, and we've handled that pretty well for most of the year. We've started favourites in a lot of our games and been able to carry that pressure reasonably well, and I wouldn't think the weekend would be any different.
You haven't really settled your side much this year, been rewarding guys that have been playing well outside of the team. Are you going to look to settle the side during finals, or are you still going to...?
It's an interesting one because I guess some of those changes have been made through necessity. So you have injury and you have form, and I guess what we've tried to do, as you mentioned, is just play guys who are in good form, and we've been really lucky this year in terms of the players that have been playing the SANFL have really forced our hand in a lot of ways, and through their good form forced their way into the side. So I wouldn't think our philosophy had changed a whole lot. If we've got someone that's in great form in the SANFL and we've got someone that's not in great form in the AFL, we won't be keeping that poor performing person in there because we don't want to unsettle our side. We'll make changes if necessary, but we've been reasonably fortunate. I think most of the guys in the team are in good form at the moment. So some guys that have been out through injury or had been struggling over the last 2 or 3 weeks have done some really nice things and got themselves organised and in form.
Mark, I asked this question already, but Walker and Vince, have they been tipped off to play this week?
Yes, that question has been asked, but they'll play. Probably a bit more definite in my answer this time around, but yeah, they got through training, no problems, and we'd expect them to take their spot.
So how tough is selection for the 2 guys you're going to miss out?
Yeah, look, it's. I think you can go back through every year, and whenever you have finals, people miss out, and and it's tough for those guys. But I think the beauty of it is that this is we're planning for a lengthy finals campaign. So the guys that miss out this week, they don't drop their bundle. If they get the opportunity, they go back and they play in the SANFL and try and stay in good form. If not, they do everything right on the training track, so that if an opportunity comes, inevitably they do each year where players get injured. Through final series, we saw some players injured last week for teams that are taking part in the final, so sometimes that door opens up for them. So, history's been littered with blokes who have got opportunities late in final series.
You've been around a long time, obviously seen it all pretty much at the club. What's the great thing about this side that they can take through this final series? Where's the real positive coming as far as winning the flag is concerned?
Look, I think it's our depth. We've got great depth through the middle. We don't have... one star player that we rely on. I think our potency in our forward line is very good. So if you look at our forward structure, we've had a number of people. I don't know the exact number. We've got heaps of people that have kicked double-figure goals. So we've probably got 8 guys that have kicked more than 10 goals. We've probably got 5 that have kicked more than 20 goals. So, when Sydney look at their defence this week, they need to find someone to play on Tippett, someone to play on Walker, someone to play on Callanan, someone to play on Johncock. So we don't feel as if we've got all our eggs in one basket, and if someone has a down day, we're pretty certain that someone else will pick up the rope.
How significant do you think Heath Grundy out of the Sydney defence is?
Certainly they'd much rather have him playing than not, and it does mean that, you would think, or surmise that maybe Lewis Roberts-Thompson, who's been playing forward for the better part of the year, may have to come back. So it just means that they have to make some slight adjustments. I think I heard last night on the TV he's kicked 12 goals in the last 6 games, so that's it's a pretty good avenue to goal that they've had, averaging 2 goals a game. So to have to move him out and take him to defence, it certainly will cause them some disruption. But I think when they won the premiership, he was their premiership player at centre half back or full back. So he's a very capable player, and if he plays on Taylor or Kurt, they'll have their work cut out.
What makes Josh Kennedy so dangerous, Biggs?
Well, just his size. He's a not dissimilar to Jobe Watson, I guess, and Patrick Dangerfield in a lot of ways. They're big-bodied. They're hard to move. He's got great hands. He's good aerially. He's a goal-kicking midfielder. So that's a challenge for us to make sure that we get our share on him and we don't allow him to impose himself on the game.
Do you look to apply a hard tag to him?
It's an interesting one because he's the way he is with that really hard contested style of footy that he plays, much like Patrick Dangerfield. It's very difficult to stop those guys. So we'll look at that. That'll be one of the things we'll discuss, and we haven't decided which way we'll go on that yet.
What is VB's role at the moment? Because obviously on the weekend he sort of started more on the wing rather than hard tag on Ablett, and then that sort of changed up midway through the second.
Yeah, look, I guess we've had a number of guys play that sort of defensive mid-role. So Matthew Wright's done it in recent times. VB's done it, and it really is, it's horses for courses, really. So, VB has played and done really well on blokes like Stephen Hill against Fremantle. He played on Mark Murphy and did really well against him when we played Carlton while he was on the ground. He's done the job on Ablett last week. So he has, Stanton was another one against Destin, I think, who he locked down on pretty well. So he's got attributes, his running power and his ability to stick to a task that are slightly different to other guys. So Righty's more, lower to the ground, probably hunts the ball a bit more. So depending on who plays and what their strengths are, depends on who we go with that defensive mid. But we don't really have a really tight lockdown mentality where we have one guy sacrifice his game. Both those guys, when they play on a player, are still expected to get some footy themselves.
So this side's got as much evenness and depth as a lot of other Crows final sides that you've been involved with over the years?
I think you'll find that generally most sides that get to this part of the year do have that evenness, and they've been good enough, particularly when you finish top 4. So you've won 17 games. You don't generally do that by being a one-trick pony. You need to have lots of contributors. You need to have good structures and systems that have been able to stand up over the duration of the season. I think we've got that.
There's a real feeling among the group that if someone like a Danger is held, that other blokes will stand up and get the job done. Yeah, I think so. I think we've seen that during the year, various stages. Because of the nature of the season, it's a very long season that, Danger's probably had a month where he was a bit flat. Tomo's it's probably harder to think of the times that he's been down, but, Sloaney had a little bit of, a period where he probably wasn't quite as prolific as what he had been. So at various stages we've had players with their ups and downs, but generally we've been able to cover them pretty well.
Mark, how do you compare it to the 97 and 98 premiership sides?
Yeah, I thought this question might come. And thinking about it, it's very difficult to compare across generations. The game is so different. I guess the one thing that you could say is similar is that in that time we had some younger guys who were just bursting onto the stage. So Andrew McLeod probably played about 30 or 40 games. Roo was still a young bloke, 21, 22, Goody a bit the same, Kane Johnson. So those guys, I guess, had a mentality of sort of youthful exuberance where they didn't have a lot of fear, or they just went out and just wanted to play well. And I think if you look at some of the guys who have been really good for us this year, they're in that same age bracket. So you've got Walker, who's 21, 22. You've got Jacobs, a similar age, Dangerfield, Sloan. So that's probably the only similarity, that you've got this up-and-coming young group of players who have, really put their mark on the team this year.
You were hard to get that knowledge of your experiences in the grand final.
certainly haven't talked grand finals yet. I think what we've talked about is, as a coaching group to the players, a little bit about the opportunities that arrive now, and generally what style that has success in this time of year. And we're pretty fortunate in terms of, Brenton obviously has been involved in a very successful organisation, and most of the coaches here, Scott Camporelli, premiership player, Darren Milburn, the same. So within our own areas, we sit down and through our relationships with the players, we talk about different methods and ways that you can prepare. And everyone's different. Some guys meet it head on. Other guys are a little bit nervous. So every person's different, and you just you sit down and have a chat with them about how best they will approach the final series, and hopefully we work towards getting the best performance for them out of it.
Is it a tough balance, the sort of encouraging the youth and inexperience, just going out there and making the most of it, but then also making them realise that these chances don't come along all the time and you have to grab?
Yeah, most definitely. And I don't think one of the beauties about some of those younger guys, it's not like they've been spoilt and they've come up and they've played finals every year and they think, well, this will just keep rolling on, because the last 2 years have been a difficult time for this football club. So, in some ways, they feel as if this is the culmination of a couple of years of hard work. They've taken a few slaps over the last couple of years. They've done the right thing in terms of put their heads down and their bums up in the pre-season, got themselves bigger, stronger, and I don't think there'll be any chance that there'll be any sort of complacency thinking, oh, well, if we don't make it this year, we'll butter up again next year. They want to make the most of this time.
Was there a comparison to be made again of those tough years you talked about with the 97 team particularly? You had some tough years a couple of years before, and new coach comes in, that kind of stuff. Is there a similar vibe about the place with that?
No, I guess so. It's probably at the start of the year, there's some similarities in terms of a new coach comes in and changes things around a little bit, and it sort of frees up the group. But, mate, I'm flat out remembering what happened a couple of weeks ago, never mind 15 years ago, so it's a long time ago. Like I said, different. We were part-time back then. These guys are full-time. There's so many differences, but what I love about this group is they're so professional. They're the way they've prepared, the way they've gone about the last couple of weeks. After the Brisbane game, which was a little hiccup, for them to be able to button back down again, produce some really strong performances. It can sometimes be difficult as a player when you're playing against some of the more lowly sides, and you've got to get through these games, and sometimes you can drift a little bit into what's going to happen in the finals. But they've been able to stick to the task really well, and we've arrived here now, doing what we had to do the last couple of weeks, and feeling as if we're in a really good place.
How much of a boost would it be for the side, perhaps mentally, if Daniel Farley is announced right from the start?
Look, I think that's, as nice as it is for Daniel, would be for Daniel to be announced. Look, I don't think the players will buy too much into it. Daniel's standing in our team is very, very high, and they love what he does every week. Whether he's got that accolade next to his name or not, I don't think it'll change too much. But both him and Shorey, I think we're really proud of. I think a lot of accolade has to go to, I guess, two people, Darren Milburn and also Ben Rutten. Those guys work really hard. I know Truck's still a player, but he still puts a lot of effort into helping those guys out, and it's been fantastic to see him grow and I guess to become such an integral part of our team. And both those guys have big jobs on the weekend, and will go a long way to helping us win the game.
Is Dan the sort of guy that would take that in his stride, or could it be a bit of a distraction?
No, I would have thought he would lap that up, no problems at all. He's a level-headed guy. I guess one of the things that I've heard blokes like Stephen Swert and some of our medical and fitness people talk about, they talk about him being the best that they've ever seen. So, Swerty's been here a long time, but they just said the way he prepares and his attention to detail is just outstanding. So I would be really confident that this would have no effect on the way he plays.
It's just the opposite. It's been a midfielders kind of thing generally. How hard is it for a young bloke to play key positions?
Yeah, look, I guess the reason it's probably become a midfield, or it could be looked upon that way, is generally the key position players take a little bit longer to develop, and that's sometimes it's physically because you're playing against guys like Goods, Cloak, and these guys are Tippett. These are giant men, and generally at 19 the bodies need 3 or 4 years to be able to really fill out. But as I mentioned, his work in the gym and around the club has been outstanding. And he's just, it's been really good, you know, in terms of listening to what the coaches have had to say and then being able to apply it straight away. It's been great. But having said that, you know, there's a couple of guys, key position players up there in terms of, I think, you know, Cameron's a key position player. Who else has won it in previous years? Jared Rivers was a key position defender. Yeah, so there's been a few players who have been able to do it, but it's probably more common that it's sort of the speed and skilled type players that generally win these awards.
Who gets the job on goods this week?
I'm not sure. We haven't sat down and made a definitive answer, but what generally happens is it's not one guy who spends all night on Adam Goodes, because Adam Goodes is a player who plays sometimes out of the square, sometimes roaming up to the wing, sometimes pushing up into stoppages. So I would suggest that, you know, different players will get that job at different times. Our defenders, sometimes they have a break or they'll rotate off the ground. So, you know, it'll be any one of Talia, Shaw, Rutten, all those guys are capable of doing that, and at some stage you'll spend time on him.
Lewis Jetta's been a bit quiet, be very damaging in a short space of time. Have you done a fair bit of homework on him?
Yeah, as with all their good players, you know, Jetta, Kennedy, Jack, you know, they've got a heap of guys who carry the ball, and that's probably been the difference with Sydney this year as opposed to other years. They've always been a great inside team, we know that, and they still are, but they've just added a little bit more handball, a little bit more outside run, and you know, we're well aware of players like Jetta and McGlynn who love to, you know, get forward of the ball and run towards goal. So you know, we had a plan last time against him, and yeah, we'll certainly have a plan going in again this time.
With Sanderson's dramatic improvement to the squad since he's come in, would you say he's had a Blight-style influence?
You need a headline here, is this where we're angling? Look, he's his own man. Malcolm was different when he came. Malcolm was an experienced coach, been to the grand final 3 times before, without success. You know, Brenton's a rookie coach, coaching for the first time with a background of success, so they're probably polar opposites in a lot of ways. So, no, I wouldn't compare them. I'd just say that Brenton's done a fantastic job. He's instilled belief amongst the group. He's managed the players really well, and the players enjoy being around the club, and they're enjoying, I guess, the nature of how the year's gone. You know, we're winning games and having really good results. Players are playing well. They feel as if they're in an environment where they're getting the best out of themselves. So that's a really good spot for a footy club to be in.
Do you still have a desire to be a senior coach, mate?
Yeah, I guess at some stage, but it's not something that's occupying a lot of my thought right at the very moment, because like the players aren't getting ahead of themselves, I don't think the coaches are either. We need to make sure we just stick to to what we need to do to get the results we want. All the other stuff will take care of itself.
So you haven't been approached yet by Port Adelaide?
No, I haven't.
Would it interest you?
No, well, like I said, I don't really want to think about it too much. We've got a big, hopefully, month to come. I think I've said once before, generally the assistant coaches that are in high demand are the ones that come from successful organisations. I think there was 5 new coaches last year, and 5 of them come from out of generally Geelong and Collingwood, who were the grand final teams. So I would have thought if I wanted to be a senior coach, it'd be a really good route for me to be really successful here. And if that's the case, people will probably want you.
Mark, as a tough midfielder yourself, you must be excited at the midfield battles this week with the 2 contested Kings going out in the middle.
Yeah, and it will. It'll be a pivotal part of the game. And I think we saw it last time in the game in Sydney. Probably the first 2.5 quarters, the ball was just, you know, really bumbling around in there. Lots of tackling. Not a whole lot of pretty outside football. And once again, as we play finals, if you watch Geelong and Sydney last week, it was one of those, you know, not pretty games, I guess. I don't want to say ugly, but it wasn't a pretty game in terms of there wasn't handball chains, free-flowing, players out in the open taking beautiful marks and running and kicking. It was more lots of numbers around the footy, get it forward at any cost, and then trusting the guys in front of the ball to win the contest and hopefully be able to score goals. So that's what we'd expect this week.
Talk a little bit before about time during the year where you started believing that this team really is going somewhere this year?
I think we always thought, we had a really good pre-season, so as coaches we were wrapped the way pre-season went, and then the stuff with the NAB Cup sort of rolled out reasonably well. We actually had the opportunity to play against some of the better sides, so we played against Collingwood and we played in the final against West Coast, so a couple of top 4 teams from last year, and we felt as if we did okay, but always had an understanding that they perhaps weren't at full strength. And then as we rolled on throughout the year, most of the challenges we set the players, they were able to measure up to pretty well. So probably as each week went past early in the year, and we'll continue to meet those challenges. I think not only our belief in our squad rose, but also the players' belief in themselves. So it was a bit of a gradual thing, I'd suggest.
Has that been a key ingredient in the season? You mentioned that belief. I mean, obviously that comes a lot from winning as well. But I imagine that it dissipated somewhat given last season and the difficulty of last season. Has that been really the key ingredient to this year?
I think you reset after every year, and I think everyone knew that it was going to be different when you got a new coach or new coaches, new game style. So I think most players at the start of the year when we came in and we sat down and said this is the way we're going to approach this year, it was there was some genuine excitement there in terms of we're doing something a bit different. But you still need to be able to be rewarded for some of the stuff that you're doing, and I guess we were fortunate that with the NAB Cup and our early season form, that the stuff we're asking the players to do, they were doing and they were getting the results. So that's how generally you build confidence and you build belief. So sometimes, use an example, maybe Richmond, for example, who had 8 or 9 games, they've lost by under 10 or 11 points or 2 goals, whatever it is. They're putting in all the hard work, but at the same time, they just probably, particularly early in the year, weren't getting the results to reward them for that. They lost some close games against Geelong and some of the other teams that they nearly got the job done. So, we were fortunate we were able to get those wins, and that helped build the belief.